Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Flatout Racing Network's coverage of the playoffs for the Great Lake Truck Series playoff race number 2. This is Talladega. I'm Seth Cole alongside of Matthew Rodriguez. Matt, we knew coming into tonight's event this was going to be really the wild card race of the playoffs, the unpredictability of super speedway racing. You've got to have alliances, whether it's teammates, maybe manufacturer alliances. You've got to avoid the dreaded big one. But I'll tell you what else stood out to me as a possible X factor tonight. 36 drivers scheduled to take the green flag here tonight. That's a lot of points on the table.
It's a lot of points, but it's also a lot of, hey, there could be some guys that maybe you weren't that familiar with in the season. Maybe they just kind of been cherry picking their schedule. But one thing I just noticed, Eric Kemp, this is his first ever pole in 7 seasons of the
Wow.
Great Lake Truck Series. His first pole.
How about that? Eric Kemp in the 63, going to be alongside of last week's winner, Zach Henry, at the Milwaukee Mile. We're going to show you the starting lineup for this race. And, you talk about drivers that kind of cherry pick where they want to start in the schedule. Also an opportunity for drivers that don't maybe necessarily start up towards the top of the grid, being able to get good qualifying results here tonight.
And that's the big thing where you're going to be looking at it where some of these guys, they're having maybe a better strategy to kind of lay back in the back. We're going to let things develop and slowly work our way up. But hey, there's some guys who maybe they normally don't do that well in qualifying, but hey, I got a really good knack at super speedways. I think I can get inside the top 10, and this is some of the best starts of the season that some of these guys have had.
Now, we've heard that there are alliances that are going to be taking place here tonight. Most specifically, the Toyotas have all gotten together and decided they're going to work with each other. They're about 50-50 in terms of numbers with the Chevy Silverados. The manufacturer that is outnumbered here tonight are the Ford F-150s, so they're going to have to kind of make alliances where they can. Do they go with the Chevys? Do they go with the Toyotas? Do they kind of go with each other by themselves? It's going to be interesting to see.
I mean, realistically, I'm in that Toyota gang, but realistically, I think if you're one of the Fords tonight and you know that the Toyotas are working together, you kind of need to work with the Chevy guys here and say, hey, well, look, if we're all going to band together here at the end of the race, is there a way that we can just kind of work against them here? I do know some of these Toyota guys, they're very loyal, but seeing some of the Chevy guys, maybe there's someone who's willing to kind of jump alliances just to try and get a win.
Shane Nicewanger won the only previous super speedway race earlier on this season, season opener at Daytona for Dark Horse Racing, where that team actually took 3 of the top 4 finishing positions, so keep your eye on the drivers out of that stable. And of course, here tonight we have to stress that the playoffs work here with the top 10 drivers that advanced into the postseason. It's whoever accumulates the most points. It's not a win and you're into the next round situation. So if you can get the checkered flag, great, but I think you got a big picture race here in the closing stages because second place, third place is going to pay out a lot more than 23rd or 24th.
Absolutely, and it looks like we just called off the green. It's going to go one more lap around. Just kind of looking here through the field, there's a lot of names here that haven't really made the majority of the starts in the season, that they're kind of making their one and only starts. Let's talk a little bit about cherry picking. I mean, obviously, looking at last week, the Milwaukee Mile, it's not everyone's cup of tea. I can tell for one that I would not enjoy, traditionally, if I'm maybe not high in the points, or maybe if I haven't been running that whole season, I probably would skip Milwaukee. But a place like Talladega, I mean, what really drives and incentivizes you to race this race?
I think just basically the fact that if you're in it, you can win it mentality. I mean, we know that with super speedway racing, drivers have a chance of being in the right place at the right time. A lot of times, the super speedway races can cater to the underdog, the driver that you don't necessarily think is going to be in the running for it. So I think that appeal, the opportunity to have better odds, if you will, of getting a checkered flag, that's what the drivers that we're seeing here that we haven't seen necessarily a lot during the course of this season. That's why we see them here tonight.
I mean, I kind of view super speedways as more of it's part strategy, it's part team, but it's also part luck where, hey, that's great. You may have the perfect pit strategy. You may have good teammates behind you, but it doesn't matter. If you guys all plow it and wreck it in 4, I mean, it's whoever makes it back to the line first. So it's always that big wild card for me.
Let's take the opportunity here, since we have this extra lap of pacing, to bring you up to date on what the playoff standings look like coming off of Milwaukee last week. Hunter Brittle, currently the points leader, 6 points in hand over a tie between Ashton Lawson and Austin Moore for second. Fourth place is going to be Shane Neiswanger. Of course, we've already talked about him winning at Daytona early on the season. He's 7 points back. Michael Sensi, 8 points back in fifth. Actually, he's tied with Elliott Henderson, both 8 points back. Seventh in points is Spencer Owens. He's 18 points out. And then kind of highlight a couple of these drivers here. Matthew Durr, 22 back. Jared Darling, 25 back. And Jackson Sims, who had a real tough race back at the Milwaukee Mile, 27 points back. You got to think those three drivers in particular, they're eyeing this race to gain back the points that they lost.
Yeah, and that's the big thing. Sims really needs to have a good race today, but remember, the key thing, don't junk the car just trying to make something happen. Let the runs kind of come to you, and don't get intimidated. Don't try to force something to happen just because you want it to happen.
Very unlikely if you get involved in a wreck here today that you're going to be competitive for the rest of the race. The green flag is in the air, and Eric Kemp, with his first pole, as you said, in 7 seasons, he's going to be the one to lead us into turn 1.
Man, it's stalling seeing all those cars go in the 1. We're already pushing to 3.
It's the 1 up on the top side, Brent Kingcott. Let's see if he can slot in line. Nope, he's going to have to stay up there and try and find some way to the inside line. Someone's going to jump up there with him. That's the 4 of Jared Darling.
Cars drop down to the bottom there. It looks like may have been the 23 Spencer Owens, and a car further on in line may have been Breyer Fritz dropping all the way to the back early on.
And I think this could be by design, right? I ended up hearing that a lot of these drivers that we would expect to see them get single filed out, try and make it at least to that first round of green flag pit stops. So you alluded to it.
Woo.
Don't tear up the equipment as this early on in the race, because you can't win the event on lap 1, but you can sure as heck lose it.
I think just the big thing of the difference in mentality. Some guys have that mentality of, I want to be as high up in the field, I want to be the leader because I don't think I'm going to get in wrecks up there, I don't have to dodge wrecks. And then there's the mentality of, well, I don't want to be up in the front of the field because that's usually where the most of the calamity happens. I want to be in the back of the pack trying to dodge these wrecks. It's the difference in mentality. I'm noticing a little bit of checkup on that bottom lane. Doesn't see another person diving out.
It's Will Barbage a lot, I believe.
Yeah, and you're going to see a lot of this. So some guys just not feeling comfortable with how the run's going at the moment. And it's almost like that sense where we get that gut feeling of, man, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to be anywhere else.
Well, we were told that more than likely we'd see single file racing in the early going, but these are racers. As soon as that green flag drops, you've got that run. You want to take it up to the top side, double or 3 wide, and we're seeing that here. Jared Darling, Elliott Henderson up there, and they're making it work. They're going to get Jared Darling alongside of Eric Kemp. I think Darling might lead this lap. Yeah, about half the truck length he will.
I mean, the big wild card here is, and that's what you're going to see a lot of. We're going to try to control both lanes if we possibly can. Where if I'm looking at this, if I have maybe 2 or 3 teammates in the field, what I'll try and do is I'll try to put a teammate on that top line. I'll try to put a teammate on that bottom line. So we basically just keep controlling the runs. We notice someone coming, we can dive out to that next lane, kind of stop them up, control the field.
Love the mentality there for Jared Darling. We mentioned he's one of the drivers that didn't have the best of luck last week at the Milwaukee Mile. I think his strat, get up to the front, lead a lap, get that bonus point, and then get the heck out of Dodge. He's dropped all the way back to the tail end of this lead pack, and you can see all those stragglers back there. I think they're kind of pulling that Joe Gibbs Racing strat. Just hang at the back. If trouble breaks out, you got plenty of reaction time to avoid, but do not tear things up here in the early going. Is up at the front, Michael Sensi going to the top here of Elliott Henderson for the lead.
You know, you mentioned that backpack. I mean, I'm not in a huge support of that. Where I've seen enough Talladega races inevitably end up going green all the way to the end without a caution. And yeah, it's great that you're in the back of the pack off the field. You're going to be able to avoid wrecks a lot easier, but Talladega is not like one of those tracks like Daytona where you can catch up easy. I mean, you have to have a coordinated effort to catch back up.
Keep an eye on this 37 of Elliott Henderson, who now is going to lose the lead to Michael Sensi, but when we were at Daytona, he led a race-high 20 laps. Granted, though, he brought it home in the 18th position, so you can be up front in the early stages, but you want to make sure that you preserve that track position for the end of the race. Has now got a challenge on the top again. This time, it's Austin Moore in the 91, who is a strong contender up inside the top 5 for much of the Milwaukee race last week.
And kind of looking back a little bit at that Daytona race, I think Moore's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. He finished P2 to Neiswanger, so hey, I bet wouldn't be off for him to get the win here.
Got a Austin Moore fan in our chat, and I love the hashtag one more time. If he takes the checkers tonight, I'm using that.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I'm always in the boat of celebrate every. I'm in that Mark Martin mentality. Celebrate every win that you get because don't know when the next one's coming. And even if it's a super speedway race, celebrate it like it's the last one.
I'm with you halfway on the Mark Martin mentality. Celebrate every win like it's your last, but don't come to pit road before you've taken the checkered flag. That's just not a good idea.
Yeah.
Shane Nice-Wong are going to go to the point here, our Daytona winner. I mean, we were talking about this last week. What do you think the odds are on maybe him going 2 for 2 at the super speedways?
Honestly, with Nice-Wonger, I could see it happening. He is one of those guys that you see on super speedways, and you know he's got a knack for him. He doesn't really show it very often, but I mean, you can tell when he's in line. You can kind of figure out where he's going, and he has a general mentality of, hey, if you want to go to the front, go pair up with him.
Whoa, Tyrell Baker! That thing was all sorts of sideways as he shifted from top to bottom. He'll go to the point. Now top side is going to be Daniel Manny in the 30 truck. He's got a rear deck lid full of the 44 of R.J. Williams. Number of drivers there, a trio of drivers that I just named off that we didn't see last week at Milwaukee.
Yeah, and it's nice seeing TCB back because I just looked a little bit. He ended up winning the pole for this race last year.
On board here with R.J. Williams. See the hand motion there. A lot of movement. Look like these trucks are all that steady. Now, one thing that I think is a benefit with the trucks as opposed to the stock cars, specifically the Cup cars, is the truck's a little bit more boxish in shape, so maybe a little bit easier to push on the straightaways.
I mean, I'll tell you my experience. I absolutely hate pushing another truck in one of these trucks in really any super speedway track. I mean, it feels so vague on the front end, and you just kind of have to guess where it feels like a push. And that's great for some people, but that's not great for others who are expecting that solid clunk or that solid feel when you're pushing someone along. So some of these guys have that feel, some of these guys don't.
Talk about the feeling like a boat might actually kind of play into what we just saw there with the hand motion inside of the 44. The truck's kind of floating around here in the corners. I mean, you can see the 44 kind of drifts up, comes back down. Doesn't look like they're necessarily planted to the racetrack, which makes things a little bit difficult to keep the straight line speed going and get that momentum off the corner. As now, ooh, there's a truck making a big move. Is that Adam Zorn, I believe, in the 45, trying to make a third line happen, but no takers.
You know, I've noticed him been trying that for like the last few laps, and he hasn't really had any takers with him. And I think this time he just got shuffled out. But every time I see him go up there and I think he's going to get shuffled all the way to the back, he somehow finds a way back to that line and just drives back up.
Mentioned about a number of drivers dropping to the back. They've fallen off of the lead pack by quite a bit. No driver is more than 5 seconds behind the race.
Oh, there's a little bit of a checkup.
Yeah, there was, and it took him 3 wide, almost 4 wide there through the exit of the tri-oval.
Yeah, it looks like Delgado in the 8 got a little bit of rear end damage. Not too bad, but I'm actually kind of worried for the front end. Not exactly sure who hit him off the top of my head.
Gavin Fitzgerald, 5th on that inside line. He had a very early DNF last week at the Milwaukee Mile, and there goes Jared Darling again. Boy, that Ford truck is fast. We ended up, whoa, somebody there on the apron towards the back. I believe that's James Shiflett. I don't know if he got a bad bump and hung on to it, but that nearly was drastic for the Miller Lite Toyota.
Yeah, and you called it perfectly. He had to check up a little bit for the cars in front of him. Just got a little bit of help from, it looks like, Aaron McEwen, but ends up keeping it straight. And let me remind you, he won last year's race.
There you go. So keep an eye on him to maybe be able to work some magic here. One thing I was going to mention just before he ended up getting out of shape there on the back straightaway, Jared Darling looks like he's got a very fast truck. We saw him work his way to the front, led the outside line the early going, got the left lead, then started to drop back, and he fought his way back up to the front again, little deja vu, got to the lead, jumped up to the 3rd lane, dropped back to around the 15th, 16th position, and now it looks like he might have picked up Spencer Owens in the 23. They're tandeming back up to the front again.
Yeah, and I'm kind of looking at Darling, and I like his speed. He's fast, and he was really fast in Milwaukee, but what really kind of shot him in the foot was the fact that he was just unable to keep the car out of trouble. I mean, he would do amazing things. He'd have a little bit of trouble. He'd maybe go for a little bit of a spin. Almost gets sent up the track by Vern Hawkins, but he would end up having a minor inconvenience, and it would take him completely out of the race.
And we ended up seeing, based off what you're saying, there were those spins. We ended up seeing that he lit up those tires, and so he never had the grip afterwards to be able to move
And
his
that's the
way
big
forward
thing.
as rapidly as he had been able to.
That's a big thing where, I remember that one spin, he was coming off a four, looped it right in front of pit road. No caution came out. He kept driving. He drove all the way back up the field.
Yeah,
And then another mistake happened and sent him all the way back down. It's just the continuous, hey, you're fast, but you just can't keep it in the same direction as they go 3 wide up front.
that's Hunter Brittle up on the top, the Guinness machine, number 10. He ended up finishing third at Daytona from the 23rd starting position. He rolled off the grid here tonight from the 28th position. So obviously a very good truck, being able to cut his way up through the field. Keep an eye on him in the closing stages. One of our playoff contenders right now, the highest running of the playoff drivers on the track. You can actually see and track along with us the playoff contenders. They're highlighted in blue on the side scoring pylon.
And I'll tell you one thing, I'm kind of looking at the one thing I would absolutely love about some of these super speedways, especially Daytona and Talladega, as opposed to Atlanta of all places, is the fact that we actually have the painted lines in the track. And you may think that's a small, maybe it's a visual thing, or maybe it's a small, like, hey, it's for the fans to determine what lane is what lane. No, this actually really helps the drivers in the car of, hey, when you're battling side by side with someone, you tend to end up losing track of where you are on, well, track. And those lines easily kind of help you realize, like, okay, hey, I'm too low, or hey, I'm a lane up, or hey, I need to be on this lane, or I think I'm drifting into the high lane. Anything like that just kind of gives you that visual point of reference.
We've seen a lot of drivers battle very aggressively up here at the front. Tyrell Baker, R.J. Williams, as well as Daniel Nanny. They've been making some, I don't know if you can do a slide job here at Talladega, but they've been pretty aggressive with their moves. And that's one thing that these playoff drivers have to take into account, is there's a lot of drivers in the field here tonight. They're not battling for the championship. They're just in it for the checkered flag, and they're going to be very aggressive here, especially when we get towards the end of the race. Last thing you want to do is put yourself in a harmful situation where points are going to be lost, and I think it's obviously too early to call it, but potentially you could look back here at Talladega as the point where you lost the championship.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm going to tell you, if I really was a championship contender, I wouldn't want to be anywhere near the front right now, because I'm just looking at this hornet's nest of cars, and I'm just thinking, like, man, there is so many people in this pack that have nothing to lose. And they're going to just ascend it. I'm not willing to stake my championship chances on that. I'd rather hang back and kind of play it safe right now. Let them, if there is going to be a wreck, let them all take them out each other, but let me not get them.
That was very close right there. Tyrell Baker came down, tried to pinch down, maybe get the side draft off of Hunter Brittle for 1 and 2, and they nearly made door-to-door contact. 14 laps about to go into the books under green flag conditions. We were told these drivers wanted to try to at least get to that first round of green flag pit stops. We're not exactly sure when that fuel window is. That's down below the yellow line there, 44. But he's trying to throw a block on Hunter Brittle. But that's another aspect of Talladega. Whoa, gracious. Tyrell Baker yanking the wheel to the left, but pit road plays just as much of a factor in super speedway racing as above the double yellow line itself.
Yeah, that's the thing where, think about when you're entering pit road. I mean, what do you use as a visual marker? And that's one of 15 different things of, hey, someone may say, hey, yeah, I'm looking at that. It's Talladega's sign on the wall, and that's where I'm turning off. Or, hell yeah, as soon as the line ends up going to dash, that's when I turn down. Or, oh yeah, I see that flagman standing on the wall, and that's where I start turning in. It's really, people don't think that pit stops, these green flag pit entries matter that much, but hey, these Talladega races have a knack for going green, and you don't expect them to, so it happens.
And with the point of it potentially going green, if you end up getting a speeding penalty, very unlikely you're going to be able to crawl back into the conversation for the victory, as Tyrell Baker continues to show the way. Jared Darling now up there into second. You talked about if you were a playoff driver, you wouldn't want to be up in this hornet's nest, but 3 drivers that have consistently been up inside of the top 10 here, really ever since they got up towards the front. Jared Darling, Hunter Brittle, and Shane Neiswanger. So they're kind of throwing caution to the wind. They just want to make sure they've got the track position. Could that potentially be for the upcoming round of green flag pit stops? You kind of want to maintain that track position when the pit stops are over. Kind of unlikely you'll advance your track position if you're mid-pack rear of the field.
It could be, but I actually think it's a little bit more of, at least in Jared Darling's situation, where I mean, you got to look where he is in points. He had a really bad race, and he really needs to kind of bounce back. And he realistically probably is trying to go lead, if not the most laps, trying to lock anyone who may be a playoff driver out of that most laps led. So hey, it's just a bonus. So I could understand why he's going for it. I just, even though I don't agree with the risk, he obviously sees some value.
Yeah, we got 5 races after this one. We got the off week for Memorial Day next week, but then they'll be back at Homestead. Maybe the 4 of Jared Darling's got the mentality of bring home the trophy, bring home the steering wheel, just because then you've got 5 races. If it doesn't work out today, you think this might be your best chance to be able to get back those points you lost last week in Milwaukee. If it doesn't work out today, you've still got 5 more races to maybe be able to mount a recovery.
See, I always run Talladega as one of those tracks where it really is the true wild card, but I always do a basis assumption that everyone's going to have at least an okay run here. That's it. I don't really factor anyone out to like, okay, he's probably going to wreck out here because the super speedway. It's not like one of those tracks where you can say, oh, well, he doesn't really do good at short tracks, so I'll be able to kind of gang on him here. Realistically, no. Super speedways, everyone's kind of good at it. And yeah, maybe you don't have the knack for him, but as long as you can stay out of trouble, you're going to get a really good finish.
Well, Jared Darling looking to be the first 3-time winner on the season. Only 4 drivers have multiple victories this season, 2 apiece. Ashton Lawson, Shane Nicewanger, William Barbagelata, and the aforementioned Jared Darling. However, his 2 wins have come at tracks entirely different from Talladega. He went to victory lane at Bristol, and then a few weeks later in the desert at Phoenix. So looking to add a super speedway win to his resume here.
Seeing Nixon kind of make that right outside lane, and they are just flying there.
And I ended up seeing a number of drivers in practice. They were toying with that 3rd lane, and the 38 of Nathan Nixon was one of those drivers, and he was actually making it work as Hunter Brittle got shuffled out of line, and now we're going to go 3 wide down the back straightaway here. Brittle appears to be potentially dropping back, which I think means he could be positioning himself with teammates maybe for the upcoming round of green flag pit stops.
I see that whole line of just Chevys and Toyotas. There's not one Ford in it.
As of right now, I believe the highest running Ford F-Series would be Daniel Nanny, who we saw up front in the early stages, but he has since drifted all the way back to the 13th position. There's not another Ford inside of the top 15.
And realistically, maybe wondering why some guys who maybe they're running up front, they're kind of dropping back to the back now. You've got to kind of look at where they started. I mean, look at Nanny. Nanny started in 25th. He ended up driving his way all the way to the front. What drivers will do in kind of cases like that is really just testing what they can do late in the race, saying, okay, well, if I really tried to get to the front, if I really pushed hard to get to the front, how long would it take me? And that really helps me plan out my late race moves of, okay, how far back can I be and actually still make it to the front? And then, hey, if I had an ideal situation, where do I need to be next?
Of our top 8, 6 drivers never even started inside of the top 20. The only 2 drivers that started up even inside the top 10, Jared Darling and Adam Zornes. Here we go. Pit stops begin, and it's a bunch of them.
And it looks like everyone's going to get on pit road. Looks like someone may be speeding up there. Don't know who it was.
Keep aware of who might have been busted by the speeding police. And if this is indeed the indication of how far they can go on a tank of fuel, it means that we've got at least 1, maybe 2 more pit stops coming up here for these drivers.
I think Darling may have been speeding. Looks like he hit the line at about 63.
Finding out here in just a few moments if anybody's going to have to come back to pit road as first group came down. They all made it down on the access road to the commitment line. Let's see about pack number 2 maybe coming out of turn 4. Are the hands out the window? Is Nathan Nixon and company coming down pit road this time? Yes, they are.
And pit road is always the kind of, it's stressful because everyone's trying to get in the
Oh, Zorn! What a save!
He saved it. I don't know if he was in pit road speed, but he slowed down. Oh, he was going about 60, but he slowed it down to 40 to try and even it out.
Boy, very impressive there, being able to keep that thing from turning into the inside wall. By all accounts, he should have had...
Looks like Ross Brockman got into the side of the 2.
And looks like the 16 of Rod Fast now may have also overshot his pit stall.
So realistically, I was actually kind of looking at it. It looks like Brockman was trying to get to his pit box, and Durr didn't realize that his. I mean, his pit box wasn't even that close. What in the world?
It's like Jared Darling may cycle out to the front with Tyrell Baker as his wingman. Those two have been tandeming since they came off of pit road together. See if anybody dives back onto pit road. Ooh, extended stay. It looks like for R.J. Williams. Wonder if he might have gotten a penalty. Looked like he was just taking service, though.
Yeah, realistically, in my eyes, like the big loser in this kind of scenario has to be Matt Durr. I mean, he lost a ton of time.
And Matt Durr, as you can see there on the left side of your screen, the 2-car, trying to...
I don't think he got any damage out of that either, but like I said,
trying to win a championship, and he was 8th in points. This is not good for him.
That's just how it kind of plays out, where, I mean, you take that risk every time you come in for green flag pit stops, you keep awareness.
Now, he does have a teammate with him. Oh, we got a car on pit road. Kyle Nogle in the 15. I believe he might be serving a pass-through, but the good news for Matt Durr is he does have Robin Durr with him, and as soon as I say that, the 98 peels off onto pit road. Obviously must have gotten a speeding penalty, so that's about 3 drivers right there that have had some speeding penalties. We got one on the apron here. That was the 6 of Jackson Sims, who was the lowest finishing playoff contender last week at the Milwaukee Mile, and I think he went down to the apron to avoid a wreck, an aggressive move by Daniel Nanny and Tyrell Baker. He didn't advance his position, so I believe he would be clear of a penalty.
Just looking at it here, looks like Lewis Woodall's coming back in, maybe to serve a penalty. Yeah, it looks like he's serving a stop-go penalty, so he ends up getting back out on track, but that is a huge hit to some of these drivers.
So what would lead to these stop-and-goes that we're seeing? Because already we've got R.J. Williams, Robin Durr, Kyle Nogle, and as you just mentioned, Lewis Woodall. What leads to that stop-and-go penalty for them?
So stop-and-goes can be very many things. It could either be, hey, maybe you're speeding on exit, or it could be what most commonly is, you ended up merging above the yellow line before you pass that blue commitment cone on the back straightaway. So even if you stick maybe just barely at 1 or 2 tires above that yellow line, Racing clocks you and says, hey, you got to come in, you got to serve your penalty.
Now look what a difference a round of pit stops make. We only had about 3 playoff contenders up inside of the top 10 before the pit stops began. Now enter in Ashton Lawson, Jackson Sims, Elliott Henderson up here into our top 10 along with Austin Moore. Apparently now they feel that pit stop's in the rearview mirror. It's time to race.
I'm not fully in agreement to this yet because we know we're going to have to do one more pit stop here, or at least one more pit stop here. But I don't feel fully comfortable yet. I mean, they're still over. We haven't even hit halfway in this race.
Well, Barbichelata had that great battle all race long last week at the Milwaukee Mile. Tire strategy did not work out to his benefit in the closing stages, but looking for his 3rd win on the season. He's going to jump to the top with Tyrell Baker. They're going to stick the 24 of Ashton Lawson in the middle, and committed to that inside line right now. That is Jared Darling, as well as Daniel Nanny, and how about Adolfo Delgado up here in the 8 truck as well? Good run for him after that round of pit stops. Adolfo was actually up inside the top 5 in speeds during practice.
I noticed he still has a little bit of that back end damage that he got from, I believe it may have been Hunter Brittle, the contact he had with him, but honestly, that truck still looks fast.
R.J. Williams, we saw him get put a lap down. He has fallen to the tail end of this lead pack. Robin Durr and Kyle Nogle, after we saw them back on pit lane, they have also fallen a lap down. 34 drivers currently on the lead lap. All 37 drivers are still running, and I believe we've got 21 drivers up in this lead pack right now, back to the 82 of Jeff Johnson.
I'm noticing that really from about 14th, 15th on back, everyone's kind of single filed out. Well, I mean, I say that and I see Nathan Nixon kind of jump out, but everyone's kind of single filed out, but at least everyone from about 14th on up, they're all double filed.
I've been told that when it comes to super speedway racing that I shouldn't talk about green flag pit stops and strategy, because normally I end up bringing about the commentator's curse. But something that was kind of interesting there when we had that last round, lap 21 to 22 was when we had
Ooh.
most drivers come to pit road. Is near clear there by Will Barbagelata across the nose of Jared Darling. So by calculations, if that is the farthest they could go, we could expect to see them back on pit road around lap 44, and then that final pit stop would be around lap 66, about 9 laps away from the final lap, which is interesting because I don't think anybody took on tires on that last pit stop. And what are we talking? We'd be talking probably about maybe a half can, maybe a full can. It would be interesting to see if maybe you can save enough to just go with a half can here on the final pit stop if things do stay green.
Yeah, realistically, under green, I don't expect any of these drivers to take tires. Really, all tires are going to do is going to make the car feel a little bit more snug in draft, and also it's really going to help you on that pit exit where you can kind of pound it a little bit harder. You don't have to worry about worn, hot tires coming off pit road. Where if you decide to kind of keep the same sets, it does go a heck of a lot faster, especially if the reduced fuel tank here. But additionally, it'll make it a little bit more. It'll make the car a little bit more active on exit.
Beginning to approach the halfway point. Again, reminder, these drivers, they're going to be off next week for Memorial Day weekend, but then they'll be back in the Homestead Miami Speedway region in 2 weeks' time to continue on the playoffs here, as Will Barbagelata, Tyrell Baker, boy, that was close right there between those two. Got a truck down there on the apron on the back straightaway. I believe that might be the 89 of Drew Trader.
Man, that 025 does not look stable.
He hasn't looked stable.
His truck has not looked stable, and especially with Ashton pushing him, that thing just did not look like it wanted to go forward.
You talked about how tires help with maneuverability. If there's one truck in the field that I think needs tires, it's Baker.
And that's a big thing. Like, I'm looking at this, and you know Baker's good, but just kind of looking at it, it just looks really strange. Like, I haven't seen him have that many issues getting pushed by another person. Just I don't know. Maybe
got one in the wall back there. That might have been the 29 of Vern Hawkins the third. He held onto it, no caution.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what happened. It looks like he came down almost on Nicewanger, didn't realize he was there, and quickly jerked the wheel the other direction to kind of give him some space, and just barely touched the wall of the back end. Didn't really lose anything, and I don't see really any damage on the truck. So,
got a third line forming there. Austin Moore and Elliott Henderson. Henderson now drops down in front of Shane Nicewanger, so Austin Moore left all by his lonesome in that third groove. We ended up seeing, after the pit stops were completed, we ended up seeing the two-car tandeming with Jared Darling and Daniel Nanny. Is that an option here for these truck drivers near the closing stages of this race? The ability to lock bumpers and be able to kind of propel themselves towards the front, especially if that third lane is open?
The last time I ended up driving one of these trucks, yes, it was possible. However, it was, for lack of a better word, extremely sketchy, where it really felt like the truck behind wanted to pick you up and kind of just push you wherever you went. Well, that's great if the truck wants to go straight, but if the truck kind of wants to go everywhere else, or you're entering a corner, picking up the back wheels off the ground, you're going to end up going in the fence.
One thing I've noticed, and this has been ever since the drop of the green flag, there's been very little commitment by the leader of the second line to that second line once they get cleared to move down to the inside. You saw Ashton Lawson just go to the lead and drop down in front of Will Barbagelata. Tyrell Baker now leading that outside line. He is, in the past, he has been up there and then moved down to the inside line. We saw Will Barbagelata do it earlier in front of Jared Darling. It just kind of seems like once you get pushed out to the race lead with that second groove, the abandonment kicks in and you just try and hug that double yellow line.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out, like, I mean, obviously, I think the top line is a little bit faster if the momentum that it carries, but obviously it's a longer way around the racetrack. You want to kind of dive down to the shorter line, but realistically, if a guy's pushing me well, then I want to kind of keep staying in that lane, but just how all over the place Baker's looked, that truck has just looked really odd when it's getting pushed.
And you saw him get pushed to the lead by Elliott Henderson, jump down in front of Ashton Lawson. Now Henderson, with a rear deck lid full of Shane Nicewanger, going to get pushed to the front. How about Michael Madden in the 7? First time we've mentioned his name here today, and he's about to crack into the top 5. Third truck in that middle line.
Now I'm noticing that third line start, and I'm a little bit iffy here. Like, guys, it's not yet halfway. We're not there yet.
And I think Will Barbagelata is thinking the exact same thing. He just dropped down to the bottom on the apron there, and looks like he's going to drop to the back, but Hunter Brittle, big push on that top side by the 29 of Vern Hawkins III, who, what was it, 5 laps ago? We said he was up into the outside wall. Apparently it didn't damage that truck at all. That thing's still speedy.
Yeah, that right rear still looks solid. I think he can still push.
3 wide, about 3rd place, 4th place on back, double wide amongst the top 4. Like we've got about 20 some odd drivers up in this lead pack, and a couple of them that stand out to me. One of them specifically is the 6 of Jackson Sims. We end up seeing after the round of green flag pit stops, he was able to work his way up inside of the top 5. He's since dropped back to the tail end of this lead pack, but still in the running here, still in this lead pack, and he's picked up a pretty good drafting partner there, the 12, last week's winner, Zach Henry.
Yeah, that's the thing where I really think a lot of these guys are still riding right now. I think once we finally start getting these final 20, 30 laps, that's when you'll see the back half of the field that's kind of been riding around become a little less passive.
About this, an X Factor, that bright neon yellow number 44, that's RJ Williams. Remember, we saw him go a lap down. He is still -1. It's in the lucky dog position. Now, obviously, right now, he's not in the conversation to take the race lead, but he could certainly push somebody to the front.
And not only that, I mean, just being able to kind of stay there and say, hey, no matter who we end up catching, I'm in the bottom lane, I'm near the front, I'm with the leader. No matter who we pass as a lap car, I'll always be ahead of him.
He's got 28 seconds over the next lap truck, which right now would be Robin Durr in the 98 truck. So it looks like, barring any problems, if we were to get a caution, he would absolutely be the recipient of the lucky dog. As Elliot Henderson mentioned the fact that he led 20 laps, a race high 20 laps back in the season opener at Daytona. I think he's only led maybe 1 or 2 laps here today. Been a bit of a lack of appearance at the front for the 37, but now, as we enter into the second half of this race, he's up there front and center.
As I'm kind of looking here, man, everyone's really non-committal to their drafting partners here at the moment. I'm not sure if that's going to change as we go later in the race. Man, as the top 2 end up touching.
Boy, I'll tell you, is it side drafting? Is it just the unsteadiness of these cars, especially going into the entrance of the corner, the floating that you were talking about? I mean, what is it that we're seeing there?
It's a little side draft, but it's also the fact of, like, you see it, and you're side by side with a guy for multiple laps on end. You know that if you just get a little bit clear of him, you'll have the edge. And you know where you're running on track, you know it's safe, and you're kind of think like, man, if I just got a little bit lower, maybe if I just pinch him down a little bit, he'll hesitate just a little bit. He'll just give me that little bit extra room. And
apologies for that reaction, but Jay Neiswanger, he nearly lost it off of turn 2. Got a big shot from behind by Hunter Brittle, and he was fishtailing for a couple of feet.
So I'm looking at the guys that they're about to lap. That's where I'm getting a little bit iffy of, because it looks like they're staying low here at the moment. The majority of that line is on the bottom. So obviously you're going to, well, now they're going split lanes.
Like Kyle Nogle is in the middle of that. Now they're going to go up to the top. Guild gets themselves double filed out, so should be able to make it past these machines without any trouble. Lewis Woodall in the 13 in that mix, and I believe the other lap truck of Rod Fastnow was in that group of 3.
And that's the scary part about being one of those leaders, where you kind of have to deal with the fact that, hey, you're going to have to deal with lap traffic. You're going to have to deal with the unpredictability. And again, maybe you know some of them, maybe you don't. And it's the fact of you're going to have to kind of navigate traffic and navigate, you got to kind of predict what those guys are going to do.
Now, I mentioned about the fact that RJ Williams right now is in the lucky dog position, but as things currently run, this lead pack is only about maybe 18, 19 seconds behind. Whoop, wait a minute, what's going on here?
It's like Lawson jumped out.
Lawson jumped out, Fitzgerald jumped out, looked like Kempf jumped out. Not sure all that was going on there.
Well, those all 3 of those were on the same team.
Well, there you go. No communication there, getting out of Dodge, finding a safer place in in the field, but going back to the RJ Williams conversation, they've only got about now 17 seconds between them and a group of trucks up ahead, which span as far up as 22nd place. If they catch them, as we've stayed under green here for these first 38 laps, RJ Williams could rapidly find himself out of the lucky dog position. He'd have to race all of those trucks that they reel in.
You know, listen to the driver comments. You're just getting the strangest little tidbits of information. Heard about a lap ago, Shane Neiswanger and Elliot Henderson had a little bit of conversation. Shane was ready to go to the front. He started pushing Elliot. Elliot dove to the bottom line. Shane was confused. Elliot said he pushed too hard. Shane said he wanted to win.
Didn't those two have a little tat-a-tat last week in Milwaukee?
I think they may have had a little
with each other.
May have had a little dust up. It's all good.
Who says scores aren't settled at super speedways?
They're friends. I believe it.
They're friends until they're... No, we got one in the grass back there. That's Lewis Woodall through the infield grass. He's going to keep it straight. Whew. Little lawn maintenance there by the Pepsi machine, but we still stay green. Wild ride there, though, for Lewis Woodall.
Yeah, I looked back at that, and he didn't have any contact, so he went all the way from the top lane, all the way in front of Ashton Lawson, and it looks like the cars in front of him ended up checking up a little bit. And it looks like when Lewis got on the brakes, it just kind of stepped out on him, and he just took a trip to the infield.
I've seen a couple of incidents today near cautions based off of checkup. Now, obviously, I'm not as familiar with super speedway racing on the iRacing side. How prevalent is that checkup, especially, well, actually, we'll get to that point in a minute, because we got some pit stops here.
Oh, maybe we've got too hot. Someone missed pit road entirely.
That was Adolfo Delgado, I believe.
And that is a huge, huge hit for him.
Boy, he's going to bring it back up onto the track, and he'll have to come back around. A lot of track position lost. Ooh, that thing. I guess he got down to a lower gear, had a little wheel spin. I thought for a moment the suspension was killed on that number 8 truck, because it looked a little bit skewed there, but looks like he is okay.
Well, the good news of what he did is he didn't hit the commitment line. If he would have hit the commitment line and ended up missing pit road, he would have got a penalty on top of that. So the good news is he didn't hit the commitment line. He wasn't even clocked on pit road for speeding, so it isn't an unsafe pit exit. It isn't speeding. So he's dodged that bullet, but he's also had to deal with the second bullet now of, uh-oh, I've just missed pit road.
Well, we ended up having 2 big packs during the first round of green flag pit stops. We had a big pack just moments ago, and then 2 trucks come to pit road this time. Tyrell Baker and the lap car of Rod Fastnow. So it looks like Elliot Henderson, Austin Moore, Shane Neiswanger and company. Looks like they're going to stay out at least an extra lap or 2. And this is, on projection, this is about 2-3 laps sooner than we expected them on pit road. Obviously the field spread out a little bit more, so did the fuel window, did it lessen a little bit here with the trucks as spread out as they were?
It could have lessened, but what they also could have done is it could have ended up thinking like, okay, we're going to have to make at least 2 more stops in this race. If we take a stop early and take a stop later, but just earlier than we were projecting originally, as we see the rest of them come to pit road, that could probably even it out and make it a little bit nicer.
It's like this group's going to get on pit road nicely. 3 wide back there.
Oh, man, there's
we got some. Yeah, we got a couple coming off of pit road. Robin Durr in the 98, right in front of Michael Sensi in the 92. Oh, man, Kyle Hall right in front of Elliot Henderson.
And that's the big thing about green flag pit stops. You have to deal with everyone going on and off of pit road at different times.
Ross Brockman in the 52. Looks like he stayed out an extra lap, but he'll probably be coming to pit road this time, and there you see behind him, this is the group that probably is going to inherit the race lead. Jared Darling looks like he may be 2 for 2 in being the top runner once the cycle of green flag pit stops are complete.
Just looking back here, it looks like Michael Bartolota had a penalty on entry. It looks like this was probably ended up being speeding. So that's going to cost him, looks like a lap or 2, most likely 2 once they get going. Same thing for Kyle Newgle. Looks like he ended up getting clocked for speeding as well. Looks like he also had an unsafe pit exit, ended up having to come back in. Actually, it looks like he's taking tires.
It's all about execution at Talladega, and we have incredibly not seen the caution flag fly here today yet, so that has made mistakes on pit road. It has exemplified it 11-fold with terms of track position loss. There's Ross Brockman peeling off to pit lane. He had to make a pit stop here within the next lap or two. And I think maybe what he was hoping for was maybe stretch it as far as you could, catch a caution, maybe gain some track position in that regard. But coming to pit road all by your lonesome, that is certainly something you do not want to do in super speedway racing. Case in point, Tyrell Baker. We saw him come to pit lane all by himself. He was up inside of the top 4. He has since cycled around to the 10th position.
I've got a hint that some of these guys are working together. Just kind of seeing the general Toyota manufacturer up front, and then now I see the Chevys making a run to the outside.
That's Elliot Henderson up there on the top.
Oh,
Drew Schrader in the 89, who is several laps down, 3 laps down. Michael Sensi there, Tyrell Baker. Got Jeff Johnson there in the 82. Jeff Johnson, the 82, we saw him kind of running at the tail end of the lead pack for most of that second run, and now he's up here inside of the top 10, maybe looking for a little Michael McDowell super speedway luck, that Loves machine.
I'm kind of looking at that where I don't know, for such a clean yellow car, I think it's going to have a lot of dents here by the end of the race.
It's going to get shown the loves, is that what you're saying?
We're going to get some love taps.
Got that 23 out there. I was noticing Spencer Owens in practice. Of course, Bama Buggies here in Talladega, Alabama. That's the Chase Purdy scheme. Of course, Purdy drove the 24. Back when he was with GMS Racing and had that sponsorship. But, I mean, how cool would that be? Kind of a hometown sponsor going to victory lane here at Talladega. And, of course, look right now, you've got Owens and Jared Darling and Jackson Sims up here. Weren't these the drivers we were talking about that really needed a good run here today? Here they are inside of your top 3.
And that's the thing where, like I said, the big thing is, yes, you're here, but also just make sure that you're not going to put yourself in a bad situation. But the biggest thing that we're going to see as this comes of late, as we start seeing guys get a little bit faster and start trying to not pull back anymore, you're going to see a lot of fresh faces up here. And that's good and bad. It's good in the fact that, hey, we're going to have a lot more competition. But it's bad in the fact of some of these guys, like Jackson Sims. I'll exclude Jared Darling because he's been up here, but I'll use Jackson Sims as an example. He hasn't been racing up here for a lot of these guys. He hasn't been experiencing pushes. He hasn't been really practicing with some of these guys where, you know, kind of quickly jump into that mid-race where everyone's already found their preferred drafting partners and know how they work. It kind of throws you off, and it kind of leads into that room of, hey, something bad can really happen here.
You want to take a guess who's got the fastest lap of the race so far?
Is it a TP?
It is not. Shane Nicewonger right now, actually fastest lap, 50.692. Next closest to him, Hunter Brittle at a 7.26.
And you see that bottom lane, with that being lap cars, forces everyone up a lane higher. And what I always kind of disliked about this, whenever you have like those inside guys and the outside line has to be going all the way up to the wall, you'll find very quickly that there's just a few guys, aren't that comfortable with that high line.
Wow! How did Tyrell Baker hang on to that thing? That thing was about 45 degrees headed for the inside wall at the exit of the trioval.
And it looks like it may have been the 44 of RJ Williams going up for a little bit of a block. It was just a little bit of contact that slowed down TCB, and a 24 of Lawson just nicked him just a little bit in the right rear. Did an amazing job of saving it, though.
Looked like a bunch of them, once they got clear of that slower traffic on the, well, I shouldn't say slower traffic, but drivers on the tail end of the lap cars there on the inside of the trioval, they then jumped down to the inside line. And to your point, we've seen some very aggressive moves from top to bottom, and that type of contact sometimes is unavoidable. As now we got a middle line forming. That is the 45, who is a lap car. That is Adam Zorn. Tyrell Baker trying to push him up here, and this is getting fun as far as the battle for the lucky dog, because you've got Zorn, RJ Williams, Kyle Hall, Ross Brockman, James Shiflett all up in this pack trying to be the first truck one lap down.
And the big thing is, obviously, you got to keep this battle up. You got to keep racing in it, but you also have to have that knowledge of, hey, this wreck can kick off anywhere. And
Oh! Spencer Owens. I think he was trying to drop back, so Ashton Foster lose his teammate dropping back as well, and someone behind him didn't get the memo. He's now running the apron there through 3 and 4. Does safely bring it back up onto the racetrack. I'm losing count. I think we're up to 6 near cautions now.
it doesn't look like he was really trying to drop back. It looks like Jackson Sims ended up backing up to his front bumper, and it looks like Owens maybe tried to let off a little bit to not hit Sims so hard. And it looks like Darling, the same thing that happened to Lawson, just gave him a little bit of assistance on that right rear and sent him all the way to the infield, but still.
Oh, 4 wide, we've got a wreck. Caution for the first time today. See at least a half dozen trucks collected up in this one, including the 49 of Shane Neiswanger.
You know what I saw there? I see that 49's caught in the wall. He can't go anywhere.
Hunter Brittle, another playoff driver, was collected. Looked like Jeff Johnson, Nathan Nixon, Brent Kincott might have been involved in that one. And I believe I saw just before the contact was made, we were 4 wide for a brief second.
Yeah, they were 4 wide, and I think that's really kind of what contributed to kicking some of this off, where they just weren't intending to go 4 wide.
There's a look at it going into turn 1. It's Gavin Fitzgerald up there on the top side. He gets involved.
And they just start funneling in.
Elliot Henderson, I think he narrowly got through. That was right in front of him. James Shiflett got involved in the 28. He was battling for a lucky dog position. 82 indeed was involved of Jeff Johnson. See if we get another angle here.
Looks like Brittle may have gotten a piece of it as well. Yeah. He was in the fence. Ooh. That's huge for some of those playoff guys, though.
And I said it before, with what I had seen in practice, you get involved in a wreck here, it's very unlikely you're going to remain competitive here today. I mean, these are some massive hits that are being taken by some of these guys.
So really what looks like it happened was, it looks like Zorn on the bottom line maybe came up the track a little bit, bopped the side of Nathan Nixon, and past that, it just kind of sent the rest of them up. Look at how Neiswanger just embeds himself in the wall.
That left front fender completely impaled into that safer barrier. And Neiswanger is already done for the day. I want to take an onboard with the 37 of Elliot Henderson, because if he got involved in this incident, I don't think it was much, but this was literally right in his lap.
I think he played the perfect move and just kind of let everyone else do the blocking for him and just kind of shot the empty gap.
So Gavin Fitzgerald there moving up to the top, 3 wide beneath him.
He's in the worst possible situation for this.
On the brakes, and watch right here.
Whoa!
Oh!
And he's still wrecking in front of him, so you still kind of have to check up. But he just basically lets the seas part for him. And I think I like his kind of style here, where he just hugged the wall. And you got to think, we're on the banking. A lot of these guys are probably going to go down the track, but you got to let him lose speed first.
What are you thinking on board with the 49 of Shane Neiswanger?
I think he's going to have a little bit more entertaining here. So
on board with him.
Going in the 1, he's in his lane, he's dedicated to it, and then ends up getting tagged in the rear, and you just pretty much stop. That is a scary sight.
That is. Just narrowly avoiding that was Michael Madden. You saw he was to the inside of Shane Neiswanger, and see Shane trying to do everything he can to try and get out of the wall, but to no effect.
Well,
just like that. Maybe one of the favorites coming into tonight, the only driver that had previously won this season at a super speedway at Daytona, came into this race in the 4th position in points, was only 7 points behind the points lead. And just like that, going to have to recover in a couple of weeks' time when we get to Homestead Miami Speedway.
So, Seth, you want to talk to anyone? It looks like our in-race reporter looks like he parked it for today, but I'm fairly certain we can get anyone that you want on.
Let's see if we can dial up Gavin.
Gavin is out of the car. He is gone.
Ah, okay. Let's see. How about Elliot Henderson? He was right behind that. Let's hope his pulse rate has gone down, and maybe we'll get a chance to ask him how he got through that thing. Hey, Elliot, Matt and Seth up here in the FRN booth. You got us?
Yeah, what's going on, guys?
Okay, so we just went on board with your number 37, watched your point of view of what went down. I still replay it back in my head, and I cannot believe you were able to get through that. Can you believe you were able to get through with no damage?
I'm gonna assume Shane blinked because I thought I hit him for sure when his car was coming off the wall. But yeah, I'll take whatever happened, and we'll continue on. I just hoped I didn't get run over, and I didn't. So we're damage free, and we're gonna see how long we can make this truck last on fuel, and hopefully we get another caution, and we can pit again and restack them and go again.
So, buddy, we got 20 laps left. I mean, what you thinking here? Is it just, hey, we're staying at the front now, or is it we're still playing defensively because we think something else is going to happen?
We're done on fuel. As far as we know, we can't make it, me and Sensi at least. So we're gonna do what we can and see what happens. This was our scenario at Daytona, and we pitted with 3 to go under green, and luckily stayed on the lead lap. And then a caution came out, coming to the white flag basically, and we went into a green white checkered and ended up I think 10th or 11th there. So that's kind of where our head's at right now. And Austin pit, so he's on the opposite strategy, and may the best one of us 3 idiots win that, I guess.
Now, obviously, we know that it sounds like you guys had this strategy already planned out, but the 10 getting involved in that wreck, the 49 getting involved in that wreck, a couple of your championship competitors, did that play into the strategy call in any way?
No, not really. A little bit of it had to just do with the fact the cars were damaged. I wanted to keep people a lap down so that, if there is a late race wreck and we can pit, I only have to fall back to 25th or so versus, if we would have let people go, then you've got 32 on the lead lap or something. So it's just about managing that. And I don't know who's a lap down, and I don't want to be that guy, but at the same time, we're racing for points here, so you got to keep as many people lap down as you can.
Racing for points and trying to get that first win of the season. Best of luck here. We'll let you get back at it.
Yes, sir. Thank you, guys.
I was really worried you wouldn't get it done in time.
I was wondering.
I heard Elliot get a little bit faster.
Gotta let him get mentally prepared here for this upcoming restart. First restart of the evening. Credit to these guys. They ran 50 laps under the green flag. We saw 2 rounds of green flag pit stops, but now everybody's bunched up here. We've got, it looks like, 25 drivers on the lead lap. This is gonna get really interesting.
I'm noticing everyone's kind of on that bottom line for either one to go pits. Oh, there's a stack up in the back. I'm seeing, looks like Jeff Johnson got in it too.
Like we're still going to be going back green here. No waving off of the restart. Michael Sensi on the bottom. Elliot Henderson on the top. We'll see when these drivers are able to how they're able to get themselves organized up. You've got Michael Madden and Will Barbagelata, Nathan Nixon up here. They're non-playoff contenders. Jackson Sims up here in the 6th position for the 6th, and then Zach Henry, Tyrell Baker, Jared Darling, they're up here as well.
I looked in the back on that restart. It looks like there's a huge cluster. Ended up slowing down like about 5-10 cars. So they're almost all off the pack now.
So here's the thing that's interesting with what we heard from Elliot Henderson. He and Michael Sensi, they know they cannot make it the rest of the way. Everybody else that came to pit road, they should be able to make it. Even if the 92 and the 37 are able to catch themselves a caution before we get to the conclusion of this race. When they pit, they're going to lose out in a lot of track position, unless, do you think there is some scenario where they could clutch under pacing and save the laps that they're short?
I think that's a long shot in it where, I'll tell you first, I hate trying to plan for fuel strategy as a driver where it's more or less tell me if I'm good or tell me if I'm not. And if I'm not, tell me what I have to do. But at a super speedway, it's really, really almost impossible and also very hard to kind of fuel save in a way that won't lose you a ton of time and won't drop you off the pack. So if he got something planned, it's going to be big.
The 16 of Rod Fastnow out in front. Now, he is not the leader. He got pushed to the front of the field by Tyrell Baker, who is the current leader. Fastnow currently would be on the tail end of the lead lap. That would shift the lucky dog position currently to Adam Zorn in the 45.
I'm seeing it really almost on like 10th on back. They are about 3 wide up there just trying to get... There's some guys who are obviously fast trying to get to the front of the field, and there's some guys who are kind of just maybe waiting or biding their time.
Darling's in the middle of that. Spencer Owens as well. Jeff Johnson, Will Barbagelata. You've got a mixture of lead lap and lap down trucks all in the middle of this area around the 15th, 16th position. They now settle it out to about double wide. Up at the front, big run there. That's Vern Hawkins the third. Jump into the outside of Michael Madden, and he's going to actually clear around for the third spot. He wants more. He's going to stay up there alongside of Tyrell Baker. He's making this thing happen all by himself.
And like I said, sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you have to pull those belts tight and go yourself.
Now he's going to pick up some drafting help. Austin
Oh,
won the
my
91. As soon
goodness.
as I say that, he's going to jump up to the top line. You've also got, I believe that is the lap car, the lap truck of Will Barbagelata in the 22, the Interstate Batteries machine. They're trying to make something happen on that top line. Now they're obviously trying to get up here to the 16 of Rod Fast now, trying to see if they can get themselves into the lucky dog position.
I'm just kind of still looking through the field, but there's still a lot of guys who I think everyone's still on that differing strategy right now of some guys are not really sure if we're ready to make it. Some guys not really sure if they can make it.
Like a blink problem. Yep, that was the 91 of Austin Moore. That's scary when you're in the middle of a 3-wide pack at Talladega. Update on the drivers out of the race after our first and only caution up to this point. Gavin Fitzgerald, Shane Nicewanger, and Kyle Noble. Hunter Brittle still sits on pit road, albeit 7 laps down, trying to get that thing repaired in some way, shape, or form. Why? Well, if he can get out there and complete 3 laps, he goes from 36th to 34th. And we talked about this last week at Milwaukee. We'll probably talk about it in 2 weeks' time at Homestead. Every point, every position matters once you get to that season finale at Atlanta near the end of the season.
That's what I'm thinking that Ashton Lawson's kind of thinking here where, listen, he needs to be up here leading laps, and I don't think he's in the contention for most laps led, but he's definitely been playing around the front all day. I'm kind of surprised he left Barb out there. Unless he's trying to control both lanes.
Could be, or could just be what we've seen all day long. As soon as you get up there to the front, you jump down to the inside line, regardless of if your teammate's up there and has pushed you to the front or not.
Still looking 2 by 2 by 2 by 3 by 2. Still all the way back in the pack. They're still fighting.
See Ashton Lawson, I believe he ended up finishing 14th back at Daytona after he started that race from the 40th position, pretty much shotgun on the field. He started 24th here tonight, ironic, in that 24 truck, and now out in front. And look who's joined him. The 71 kitty corner to him, the second truck in that outside line. That is Aaron McInerney. First time we mentioned him here today.
And we're going to see a lot of these guys. Maybe we were a little bit silent here early in the race. We're going to start seeing them all up here now because, hey, it's late in the race. Some of these guys are good on fuel, so it's going to be an adventure.
Zach Henry, last week's winner, is now up inside of the top 10. And keep your eyes on the 66 of Emilio Paredes. He's the white and red number 66 truck there in the middle line, now up on the top line. He was the fastest in practice, looked really good, was really good at pushing trucks is what I saw as well. So keep an eye on him in the closing stages.
I just noticed some of these guys are looking really kind of shaky here on the bottom line. Notice Nathan Nixon coming off of pit road. That's going to put him 1 lap down.
Should remind everybody as well, it is 75 scheduled laps, but should we need to go into overtime, there are 3 green-white checkers as Tyrell Baker. I don't know if that was a drop to the back move there off of turn 2, and now Rod Fast now going down below the double yellow line. Now we're 4 wide again. Oh, it wasn't good. We were 4 wide last time, but they settle it back out to 3.
Over, maybe pushing 4 here again on the top line.
McInerney gonna
92's
get shuffled
pitting.
out. Knew that he and Elliott Henderson, Michael Sensi, Elliott Henderson, that they could not make it on fuel. They've thrown out the parachute. They've headed for pit lane. Now they should, by theory, be able to come off of pit road still on the lead lap, but they're going to need a caution in these final 15 laps if they're going to have a shot of getting back into this conversation. They cannot have this thing go green to the end.
I'm not sure if we are going to go to green to the end of the way we're racing.
Right now your leader is the 24. You've got lap trucks up on the top side there with Will Barbagelata. Correction, that's actually Michael Barbagelata and RJ Williams. Then the next highest lead lap car is third on that outside line with Aaron McInerney. No, actually, correction, my mistake. R.J. Williams got the free pass under the last caution. He's on the lead lap in second place. I'd actually forgotten about the lucky dog recipient from that only caution, and now the 44's got new life. He may have a shot at this win.
He's looking a lot better to you now, isn't he?
He is. Still
He's
just as fast, but higher up on the scoring pylon.
See, now listen, he did all the work before, didn't have anything to show for it. Now he's got something to show for it.
And I applaud what he was doing as well when he was a lap down. Continued to go to school up here at the front. Perfect preparation for the closing stages of this race. And how about that? Ashton Lawson says, all right, I know I'm leading this inside line, but I want out of here. I don't like what I'm feeling, the energy around in this pack, and he's going to drop back outside of the top 10, maybe further.
You know what that kind of hits me as? Someone who's, in the wall, looks like the 89.
Was.
But you know what kind of hits me as? That really hits me as, I don't think he's solid on fuel. I don't think he thinks he's solid on fuel. He doesn't want to lead a line.
Interesting. That's actually a really good point. We haven't talked about that. If you're that leader of a line, you're using up a lot more fuel, creating that weight, creating that draft for the trucks behind you. So good
look at
call.
Woodall. Woodall shooting the gap in the tight 3 wide.
The reason that right now Lewis Woodall is racing as hard as he is he would be in the lucky dog position if we were to catch a caution. It's the 13, the 16, the 54, like that, the 52, the 45, and the 28, all up here in this pack. Wow, what a slide.
Oh, no.
There they go. Brockman and Woodall involved in that.
No caution yet.
Come back up the track.
No caution.
No caution. The field gets spread out up there at the front. You stay green as both the 13 and the 52 never spun back up into the banking of 3. Rod Fastenau is coming to pit road in the 16, but it's almost like a grenade went off. It completely splintered the entire field.
And I'm kind of looking here to see who may have been affected. I don't think any of our playoff drivers really caught in this, but obviously that's not what Elliott Henderson and co wanted to see. They wanted that caution to come out.
They did. They're probably right now just thinking, come on, how was that not a yellow? They're still on the lead lap as things are scored right now, but they're currently running maybe about, I'll be generous, 10 seconds ahead of the lead pack here, which would most certainly put them a lap down, would reel them in before the conclusion of this race. As R.J. Williams, Michael Barbagelata, and Vern Hawkins III, that pack of 3, they have a hungry pack, 4th place on back, getting ready to swallow them up.
You know what you call that? Call it a sitting duck. Man, they are
Yes, indeed.
they are going to get swallowed up, and this is what you really don't want is anyone who's leading a race, because you know that the moment they get drafted, and you can just see them coming into relative, you just see the time ticking down, you know they're going to be coming by you like 10 miles an hour faster. It's just how it works when you got up to a good enough game. That's the reason why, hey, always at these super speedway races, if it's possible, but this wasn't caused by them, that you would always keep just a small little gap in between so you don't have that ability just to get a massive run.
Not exactly sure how that incident with Woodall and Brockman started, but I think one driver that might have been involved was the 71 of Aaron McInerney, and I'm noticing a bit of front-end damage on his machine. Zach Henry now up into the top 3, and we mentioned about the fact that during the course of this race, we would probably, Adolfo Delgado down there. Contact
right
with Jeff Johnson. But we were going to be talking about drivers during the course of this race that we may not mention near the beginning. We can talk about them at the end. How about that 25? Matt Daniels now up inside of the top 5. That Dale Jr. born on this day paint scheme there.
Yeah, I really hope it's not accurate because it says 2004 on the hood, and that is going to be some nasty beer.
What happened to Dale Jr. in 2004 at Talladega? Do you remember? I don't know.
I wish I could tell you honestly. He
probably either won or flipped, one or the other. That was typically the Dale Jr.
He got penalized because he said the no would.
Was it? It might have been.
I don't remember.
Was it 5? Just go with yes.
Ask any junior fan; they'll probably tell you.
Yep, they'll know. They'll know for sure.
He was
R.J. Williams trying to be the second non-playoff driver to go to victory lane here in the playoffs. Zach Henry was the first last week, and he's here in that second position. Zach Henry, of course, running a limited schedule. Whoa! Michael Barbagelata, nice save there off the nose of the 29 of Vern Hawkins III. But believe last week was only the 7th start on the season for Zach Henry, his first trip to victory lane, trying to go back-to-back at 2 entirely polar opposite tracks, Milwaukee and Talladega.
Just kind of looking at this here, and there's obviously those one guy that I've got my eye on right now that I'm really kind of iffy about. Has to be Vega. I'm seeing him he's kind of laying back there, and I don't know if he's planning a last lap run or if he's planning to watch the world burn.
We were 4 wide right there. That was Nathan Nixon that they went around. And yeah, Tyrell currently scored in the 11th, no correction, 12th position. But in this lead pack, you kind of watch the energy of this lead group, kind of what we saw with Ashton Lawson dropping back, not exactly all that comfortable. I feel like it's not a question of if, it's a question of when we get that second caution.
I really don't even think about cautions here. I mean, my big question is, when is the wreck going to happen? And the wreck can happen anywhere from here to a white flag on the front straightaway. And the big difference is a caution actually will be brought out with it. And I think they have the potential to get to the white flag. They have the potential going down to the front straightaway, and it just be a massive accident.
Remember when we saw, very beginning of the race, Brent Kincott, Breyer Fritz bail out and drop to the back? Here they are, leading that outside line, the 1 and the 11 here with less than 10 to go.
Man, look at Brent up there. He's been laying back all race. He's been having just a good old time, and now it's finally time to go up there and race.
Ilya Paredes up on that outside line as well. They just got around the now lap machine of Ross Brockman, who did not get the benefit of the caution coming out when he and Lewis Woodall spun down to the inside of turn 3. 3 wide for the lead. Zach Henry on the bottom. That's Michael Madden in the middle and RJ Williams around the top. He's going to take the lead still into turn 3. Little contact there between the 25 and the 7.
You know what the big thing that kind of hits me here? I'm looking at that score monitor on the side, and I'm seeing that Jared Darling is the highest running playoff driver.
Only one in the top 10.
He has to capitalize on this. I mean, he has to keep it clean. He's going to try and go for the win, though, obviously. But obviously, the biggest thing needs to be trying to get a good finish. Try to finish the car.
However, a couple of other drivers just outside
wide
of that top 10. Spencer Owens, Jackson Sims, and I also noticed Matt Durr. Remember he had that pit road problem? Oh, no, Breyer Fritz! And here we go!
Darling's in the fence.
It's the big one, number 2 here on the back straightaway. I see James Shiplett hit the inside wall. Michael Barbagelata, Matt Daniels in the 25.
Can't say I
Austin
didn't
Moore, I
anticipate
think, was
that
involved.
one. But you know, what was it? Pride become before the fall. I just
and
looked
you know who this really helped? Henderson and Sensi. They stayed on the lead lap. They were only about maybe a quarter of a straightaway from getting put a lap down.
But what a heartbreak this has to be for Jared Darling. I mean, one moment you're in the best position possible with a clean truck. You've got help behind you. And the next minute, yeah, you're in P7, but every corner of your truck is now beat in.
They almost, for a moment, had it saved. I think it was Breyer Fritz. He popped up into the air, came back down, and I thought they were all actually going to keep it straight. Then the further contact led to, obviously, what we saw there on the back straightaway, but we almost narrowly avoided the second caution. We'll go back and take a look at what happened on the back straightaway here, and
So
a lot of movement. We'll try and see if we can pinpoint where it started.
It really looks like this was caused by the lap car that ended up coming into view, where I don't think everyone expected the lap car to get out of the way, so the guys started migrating up. Once they started migrating up, hey, that's maybe a tight 3 wide that just got tighter, and it pretty much got no room, and unfortunately all cars got squeezed up, and that outside line just died.
It's like Michael Madden, Aaron McInerney was involved. Jared Darling was the one that got squeezed into the outside wall, courtesy of Breyer Fritz. Hey, you mentioned about Darling continuing on, still inside of the top 10. Fritz is scored in 3rd. mean, just how bad aerodynamically is the damage sustained by some of these drivers that elected to still continue on in their positions inside of the top 10.
I mean, just kind of looking at some of these guys. I mean, we saw it earlier in the race. Delgado doesn't really have any damage. I do see a little bit of right front damage, and that has me a little bit concerned about pushing, but also being a leading car. The biggest kind of concern that I have in my mind has to be the 11 of Breyer Fritz. There is a lot of right side damage, right side, right rear damage, and it's really affecting the spoiler. It looks like that whole back end is pushed in where kind of a little bit sketched out pushing the car, but honestly be a little bit sketched if that car could actually maintain that pain and still hold the steering.
We saw right there, this is Michael Madden we're on board with, and that right front popping up in the air. He's taken his truck back to the garage area. Tough break there. Was having such a good run. I believe he was around 6th at the time of that contact. And he will finish in 31st. James Shiflett in the 28, who we're about to go on board with, has also gone back to the garage area. And he took a pretty good impact into that inside safer barrier along with the 22 of Michael Barbichelata.
Yeah, and Shiflett was literally in that situation where he needed something to go right for him to get back on the lead lap, but unfortunately it almost avoids all of it. Just gets tagged at the very end, and that is the worst possible feeling for a driver where, hey, you think you've got it all missed, and then pow, and you just end up seeing the wall.
Not sure if that was the 25 that maybe got him from behind. I saw the 45 had some damage. Maybe he got him. I'm not sure who it was that popped the back end of his car. And I also saw another of our playoff drivers there, Matt, that got a piece of it, and that was the 23 of Spencer Owens, who was right behind Jared Darling at the time. So we were praising how those drivers have been doing such a good job up there with good track position. We're looking like they were in line to maybe gain back a lot of the points that they had lost last week at the Milwaukee Mile, but typical super speedway fashion, one corner is not the same as your circumstances the following corner.
You know, I'm kind of looking here, and I'm really liking kind of the position that RJ Williams is in. I mean, he was really fast all race. He's just been kind of minding his own business, kind of been riding well. The only damage I see on the back of that car is just pushed in. The spoiler's bent a little bit. That may affect him a little bit aerodynamically, but with the front of the car still pretty much looking pristine, I don't think there's any engine damage. I wouldn't be very concerned with having him as a lead car.
Well, just prior to that incident, I was going to mention Matt Durr had problems on the first round of green flag pit stops, was outside the top 30 for most of the second run. The caution that we got, the first caution, got him back in the lead pack. He was up inside of the top 10. Stays out here under this caution, and he'll restart in 4th place. So well done to him. This is why you stick it out in these lengthy super speedway races, because you never know what looks bleak back on lap 10 could put you in a winning situation in the closing stages. Now we're going to be going back green. It looks like an in regulation green-white checkered, but we have 3 overtime attempts available. So if the leader does not come back and receive the white flag and the caution comes out, we re-rack them and we do it again. Brent Kincott started this race from 4th, dropped to the back, and right now back up at the front. Adolfo Delgado going to share the front row with him. Then Matt Durr, Breyer Fritz, Will Barbichelata the top 5. And how about this? Elliot Henderson and Michael Sensi going to restart in 6th and 7th place. That caution was a godsend for those two.
And really what catches my eye is like some of these guys who were en route to have a really bad run really got bailed out by that caution. It's part of, hey, they had the expectation that it probably was going to be a caution, but it's also, hey, luck never hurts.
The lucky dog under that yellow, I believe, was the... Well, actually, I'm not 100% certain now. Might have possibly been the 91 of Austin Moore, but I'm not certain. We got 22 drivers on the lead lap as we get ready to go back green. 28 drivers on the racetrack here. In regulation, green, white, checkered. Will they get back to the white flag? We'll have to wait and see. It's Brent Kincott getting ready to lead us into the Geico restart zone here. He's got his teammate Breyer Fitz right behind him, but you can see the battle scars from that latest caution. How good of a pusher is the 11 going to be?
That's what I have yet to be seen. I'm not really sure how that car is going to be in a single or really in the lead car capacity.
Maybe too good a restart there for Brent. He's got
Yeah.
about 2 truck lengths back to Briar Fritz, who's getting shoved by Will Barbagellata.
He's going to become the world's best blocker here in a minute. Oh,
Oh, there goes
Barbagellata!
Barbagellata up into Adolfo Delgado. No caution yet. We're still green. Still green as we've got a couple of trucks back
but
there.
Jackson Sims, he's stuck in the wall.
Caution not out. Briar Fritz 3 wide. Henderson up the middle. Oh, little wiggle there by Henderson, and there goes Sensi. Sensi's gonna go around. He saves it, and there we go. Ashton Lawson hard in the wall. Caution's out. Jeff Johnson, Michael Sensi getting together back there, entering into the tri-oval. Vern Hawkins the third, the leader. The leader did not take the white flag. We will do it again, this time in overtime. There's a lot to cover there from that last 2.66 miles.
Yeah, I think a bunch of different drivers are going to have a lot of different perspectives on that.
Let's try and figure out, first, we'll go to the back straightaway and see what all happened there. Had a couple of trucks, Adolfo Delgado and Jackson Sims, who were down towards the inside safer barrier. I believe the contact starts for them after Elliot Henderson gets into the 27 of Will Barbagellata.
Well, actually, those two are a little bit unrelated. So that incident where really Sims got, or sorry, not Sims, my apologies. The two of, my brains. Sorry, the two of Durr got into the back of Delgado. But Barbagellata seemed to kind of lose a little bit of the rear end there. Or actually, no, sorry, got tagged by Delgado. And just opened up the door enough where Elliott just popped him just a little bit and sent him up the hill.
You know what I actually noticed? It looked like a combination of two things. It looked like the 27 got checked up by the truck in front of him, and then Elliot Henderson had a shove from Michael Sensi. So you got one truck that had no momentum and one truck that had all the momentum. Second truck, though, second playoff contender that we've seen get lodged into the Talladega safer barrier. Nice Wonger in the first caution, over in 1 and 2, and this most recent Jackson Sims, who really needed a good run today, was the lowest scoring playoff driver last week at the Milwaukee Mile. And he's going to have quite a hole to dig himself out of now.
And what did we say? We had the finish.
Let's see if we can find out now what actually brought out the caution. I believe Jeff Johnson, Michael Sensi were collected up in this. Looks like it's going to be Ashton Lawson, I think, was the one that got out of shape. We're going to follow the 92 save on the apron here through 3 and 4, and then see 24 get hooked up into the outside wall. It's Tyrell Baker that gets into the left rear of the 92. Nice save there, and then I think they were 5 wide there for a moment.
Just barely.
And there you see up ahead Johnson and Sensi. Woo, everybody scattering there to avoid Ashton Lawson, who gets it refired, but looks like that truck's done for the day. A lot of damage on the 82 of Jeff Johnson. And Lawson, oh yeah, there's smoke pouring from underneath that truck. There's no way he's probably going to be able to continue this race. And Vern Hawkins III is the one that emerges with the race lead. We've seen him as one of the more aggressive drivers here today. We saw him actually make a pass for third, second, and the lead on the top by himself. And now he's going to try and keep them all in his rearview mirror. However, I'm noticing a little bit of front-end damage on that 29. Could that affect him aerodynamically in terms of being able to hold off trucks that look a little bit more pristine, like Elliot Henderson, Daniel Nanny, Tyrell Baker, Zach Henry behind him?
And that's really my concern, is that whole front nose is pushed in, so you're basically a wall to the air. But what I'm more concerned about is both your engine RPM. Do you still have full RPM in your truck, or is it down on power?
We're going to jump back to another replay here real quick, because I did not see... Oh, okay.
Honestly,
well,
an
we're
idea
good.
here.
I thought Brent Kincott was out of the race, and I wasn't sure why, but looks like he just was having a connection issue there.
So here's an idea. Uh, you may be looking at Vern Hawkins' truck and think like, is he up to speed? He may not be fully up to speed, but you gotta remember it's 3 green white checkers. We're on our first right now. If he survives this and the next 2, I mean, he's won the race.
That's right, only 3, a maximum of 3. We would not have a 4th overtime green white checkered, so that is a possibility for him. Elliot Henderson's going to be on the outside. Problem for Elliot Henderson, though, is he's lost his wingman. He and Michael Sensi, they were working together. Now they're separated by Tyrell Baker, and that 92's got a lot of damage, especially on the right side when he was up and into the front of Jeff Johnson. So I don't know exactly just how good a pusher he's going to be prior to that damage sustained.
Yeah, that has me a little bit out, but again, I've seen him overcome worse, so I'm holding hope, but I think it may be kind of who trusts you more. Who do you trust?
Take a look on the left side of your screen. 4 playoff contenders currently up inside of the top 10. The most notable, Matt Durr, needed the run here today, but Elliot Henderson, he came into this race in a tie for 5th place with Michael Sensi, both of them inside of the top 6. They were only 8 points back, and Austin Moore, I think maybe based off of what just happened to Ashton Lawson and Hunter Brittle, who still sits on pit road after being involved in the first caution of the day, Austin Moore, if he's able to maintain where he's at, he could be our new playoffs points leader heading into Homestead, Miami in 2 weeks' time. He was tied for 2nd in points, only 6 points out of the points lead.
And how quickly the tides change.
They do indeed, and they may continue to change here as we've got our first attempt at an overtime green-white checkered, our first of 3 available. Vern Hawkins III, Elliot Henderson, Daniel Nanny, Tyrell Baker, and Michael Sensi going to be the top 5. 3 of the top 5 have nothing to lose. They're trying to find victory lane for the first time this season. Talking about Hawkins, Nanny, and Baker. Let's see what happens here. Can we get back to the white flag as Hawkins gets a good jump there. Gonna maybe try and tuck up in front of the 37. Now jumps back down to the bottom.
I'd say I really don't know how much speed that 29 has at the front end, but he has no help.
Tyrell Baker, we know that he's not afraid to push. He's going to lock to the bumper of Elliot Henderson, and there you see everyone jumping to the top. Looks like that 29 is not completely fully up to speed, and everybody else knows it. Nanny stays up on the top with Zach Henry. Big block there by Tyrell Baker down the back straightaway.
And look at Baker. He's just leading that outside line, but I wouldn't get too far out in front.
Woo! Blocking there about mid-pack. That was Briar Fritz trying to keep our pole sitter Eric Kempf at bay.
I said I think being the leader coming to the white is the worst position I think I'd want to be in.
Tyrell Baker, he was throwing some blocks in the midway portion of this race. I think he's more than willing to make that rear bumper double its size here, as it looks like we are indeed going to get back to the white flag. 1 lap to go here at Talladega. It's Baker and Annie on the bottom, Henderson and Henry on the top, and they've got the numbers. Hawkins jumps up there. Sensi was up there, but now he jumps back to the bottom.
I think that bottom's got more help now, but that top line is holding strong.
Comes Eric Kempf, big run for the 63. Does he take it 3 wide? Yes, he will. RJ Williams right there as well in the 44. Who's going to win out here going into turn 3? It's still dead even between Henderson and Baker.
I don't know if he'll get enough of a run, but I definitely like Kemp's chances out of turn 4 if he's got RJ's help.
Now it's going to come down to the side drafting, the pinching, maybe a little door banging as they're still dead even out of turn 4. Here's Kempf. He jumps up to the 3rd lane. Big push from RJ Williams. We may be 3 wide to the stripe. Contact! Zach Henry into Daniel Nanny. He's up and against the wall. Zach Henry is to the line. Elliot Henderson wins in a photo finish at Talladega.
That's a Baker thought about it. He definitely ran him deep, but Matt Daniels getting P3.
Tyrell Baker short by 25 1/1000ths of a second to Elliot Henderson. We talked with Elliot under that 1 caution period. He said, we need a caution to save us. He got the caution. He made good on it. Now, Gonna have to do a little bit more recalculation here with Henderson winning. I don't know if Austin Moore is necessarily going to be the points there. Maybe close between those two when we get to Homestead, Miami. But how about that? The guy that led the most laps at Daytona but ended up finishing outside of the top 15. Didn't lead many here today, but he's going to come away with the checkered flag at Talladega.
And just looking at kind of like the fallout from that race, everyone had their own things that they wanted to do. That was an just looking back at that finish, where they were really pushed almost 4 wide.
They were 4 wide, I think, yeah.
Yeah, that's where it started to kind of happen, where unfortunately Vern was kind of in that kind of sandwich between the bottom line and the middle line, tried to make it work, just got in the back of Henry, and once he got in the back of Henry, he also got in the back of the 30, and at that point, it was over.
It's a little bit of shame too, right? Because I was actually looking forward to seeing if Kempf was going to make it 3 wide. It looked like he had the momentum, but unfortunately in the tri-oval, usually a wreck that starts at the bottom is going to migrate its way up the racetrack, and that's where Kempf was.
And that's the downside of, unfortunately, it happens.
We're going to go back and we're going to look at that wreck coming to the checkered flag. Zach Henry, a wild ride. I think he kind of Ben Kennedy'd it there. Casey Kane also took a ride that way on a wall. I can't remember where exactly it was, but
pretty sure it was Pocono.
Wild ride. Was it Pocono?
Probably. He's wrecked a lot of them.
It made it back to the white flag, and they let it all hang out coming to the checkers. Here's a look at it. The 4 wide. It's Daniel Nanny, Hawkins, Henry, and Kempf that were in that 4 wide situation. Coming back to the checkers. There's the contact, and watch the 12. RJ Williams was collected up in that. Oh man, Jared Darling, Matt Durr. At that point, though, you're not lifting. I think Briar Fritz was in that. You keep your foot in the throttle, you close your eyes, and you hope that you're going to cross the line. If not in the same spot that you're in. Oh gosh, Michael Barbagelata just went up into the catch fence there as well with Jeff Johnson. But if not in the position you were in, at least with a net gain.
Yeah, easily. I mean, you're not going to lift out of that situation, and I don't expect you to lift out of that situation. I mean, it's a last lap coming to the line. You can make up a ton of positions. I mean, it sucks, but it happens.
Here's a look at the finishing results from tonight's thriller at Talladega. There you see it, 25 1,000ths of a second, about half a truck length it looked like visibly, from Elliott Henderson back to Tyrell Baker. Matt Daniels in third, solid podium for him. Vern Hawkins the third, made that 4 wide move. He had a strong truck, led us to that final green-white checkered, brings it home with a top 5 in fourth. And Michael Sensi, another driver like Elliott Henderson, benefited from when that caution came out, brings it home with a top 5. Austin Moore right there in 6th. Will Barbagelata 7th. Matt Durr in 8th. Eric Kempf from the pole to 9th. And Zach Henry in 10th. 4 playoff drivers finishing inside of the top 10 here today. First win on the season as well for Elliott Henderson.
And just kind of looking at this, I mean, there's a lot of guys who definitely kind of either defended their position. There's a lot of guys who either improved their point standings, but there's a lot of guys who unfortunately kind of took the bullet here and definitely lost a lot in their playoff standings.
Could have been a better finish for Jared Darling, but with everything that took place, especially in those final 25 laps, I think he'll be happy with an 11th place finish. Going to gain at least some of those points I think he lost last week in Milwaukee back. Not all of them, but at least kind of gets his footing again, I think.
Yeah, that's a big thing where you're just trying to maintain that points where, like we said last week in Milwaukee, where you're not trying to gang them all back here. The fact is, Talladega is a wild card of a track, and Darling's fast enough where we can go into another track and he can really show out. But in the meantime, make sure you don't lose more ground at Talladega, where there's a lot of guys who chase guys who definitely lost ground at Talladega.
Spencer Owens survives for 17th as we continue down the finishing results, and at Jackson Sims 26th place after this one today. Back-to-back races here in the playoffs where he has not come away with the result that he was looking for. 5 races left. Obviously, it's not impossible, but that six truck's gonna. He might have to top 5 his way out of the remainder of the season if he's going to get back into the hunt for this championship. I mean, he's got a big hole that he's dug himself into.
Yeah, and this is where it gets to that point where I wonder if you've dug a little bit too big of a hole. But hey, there's still a lot of races left in the rest of the season, so hey, anything can happen.
And then what about Shane Nicewanger and Hunter Brittle? These two drivers came into this race inside the top four of your playoff contenders, and they're going to finish outside of the top 30, 35th and 36th. You talk about digging holes. How much ground did they lose to drivers like Michael Sensi, Elliot Henderson, Austin Moore here today? I mean, what I think it was 8 points separated the top six coming into this
Ooh.
race. I think the gap's going to increase quite a bit heading
So
into next week.
provisional points just got updated. We're waiting for additional things to be added on, but looks like Niceswanger and Brittle took the hardest hits. Brittle ended up dropping back 6 positions all the way to 7th, tied with Darling, but Niceswanger lost 5. He is now 9th in standings.
Wow. So two drivers that had a lot of hope, had some really fast trucks here, just did not get the luck of Talladega this evening. Finished way down in the finisher results, and they'll have to rebound in a couple weeks' time when we get to Homestead Miami Speedway. But time to see what the drivers thought of all the action there, especially in the closing stages of this one. Let's see if we can dial up our podium finishers. Kick things off, if we can, with Matt Daniels, the driver of the number 25. Hey, Matt Daniels, Matt, Rod, and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
I do.
I'll tell you what, we know that Dale Jr. is very good when it comes to Daytona and Talladega. That Dale Jr. paint scheme looked pretty speedy out there. Didn't really see it pop up there until maybe the latter half of this race. I'm assuming that's by design, but crazy last couple of laps there. Of course, that green-white checkered. How were you able to get through, get this podium finish?
Actually, so at the beginning of the race on that first round of pit stops, I got caught pit road behind some wrecked cars, so I had to slow up and I lost the lead pack. So originally my plan was to stay up at the front of the pack and race with these guys all night. So and then, lucky for us, the caution came back out and it stacked us all back up and it kind of reset my mindset. And that's where we ended up at.
So when you were crossing the line for the white flag lap and you saw yourself all the way back and almost like really 8th, 9th, did you really think you could catch them before you guys got back to the line?
Actually, no. I had actually some car damage from when I got spun out from the previous caution. So I was just hoping for, at the line or coming out of turn 4. So I'm going to wreck, get caught up. And I already had a plan to dive to the bottom, and just try to get the best finish possible.
Well, great run for you here tonight, Matt. Third place after the carnage in the latter half of this race at Talladega. We know that it's sometimes strategy, sometimes it's a little luck. You had both here this evening. Congratulations on the podium. Before we let you go, floor is yours for thank you, sponsors, and shoutouts.
Thanks to my teammates at 2511, Zach, Breyer, and Adam was there tonight. And I'd like to thank my family for letting me do this every Tuesday night. This will probably be my last night racing for a little while. I'm making a career change, so this will be my last going out present for myself, getting a top 3.
Oh,
Strong top 3 here tonight. Congratulations. That's Matt Daniels, third place here this evening at Talladega Superspeedway. And let's see if we can get our second place finisher, Tyrell Baker.
not sure if he's actually in the
Yep, we
Discord
got him.
here. Oh, never mind.
Hey, Tyrell, Matt, Rod, Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Hey, what's up, fellas?
Okay, so we knew that there were going to be drivers that were going to be aggressive here today. None more so than this 025. You were making some moves that I didn't even think were possible. Some really good blocks there. Beginning, middle portion, end of this race. Obviously, one of the fastest trucks out there as well. You come up just short of this photo finish here at Talladega. What little more could you have done to have your splitter be the first one across the start finish line?
Had Daniel Nanny still behind me. And that last yellow there, I got a little bit of damage, but it really didn't even feel like I had any. But if I just had that 30 or 90, I don't really know what number he was, but Daniel Nanny, if I had him behind me pushing me, coming to the line, I would have had it. But once they all wrecked behind me, I just tried to side draft Elliott as best I could, and I just couldn't do anything. He had my whole right side there.
So I got to ask, because it came into my mind when I saw that finishing margin. If you had another shot, would you hit him harder?
I might have put him in the wall. I mean, I definitely don't want to wreck a guy for a win or anything, but I would have definitely scrubbed his left side off and made his right side hit the wall a little bit there. But I was saying at the end of the race, man, I mean, I've won Daytona, I've won a few other tracks, but I've always come to Talladega in this league and dominated. And I was screaming, what do I have to do to win a race here, man?
Well, so close to picking up that victory here tonight. We knew we were going to be in for a thriller with the large field, the mixture of the playoff drivers and the non-playoff drivers. You put on a heck of a show for us here today. Congratulations on the second place finish. And now we'll give you the opportunity to thank some sponsors and do some shout-outs.
Yeah, I want to shout out Eric Kep that runs the league, my personal sponsor, 213simware.com. You got all the TCB apparel there. And congrats to Elliott, and yeah, shout out to you guys at FRN. Can't wait to go back and watch this race. It was a good one. Like you guys said, I put on a little show there, so it'll be a fun one to watch back.
Tyrell Baker, second place here tonight in a thrilling finish at Talladega. Congratulations once again on the great run.
Thank you.
And let's see if we can go down to victory lane and see if we can talk with first-time winner on the season, playoff contender, Elliott Henderson. Elliott, Matt Rod and Seth up here in the FRN booth. You got us?
Yeah, nice to talk to you again.
Yeah, we dialed you up there under that caution. You said, man, we got a strategy. We need that caution for it to work out. You got the caution. You made the most of it, but a little couple bumps in the road there to get to that point. You ended up, looks like you lost your drafting partner there. A little bit of damage sustained on the 92. You had to kind of find some new alliances. So, I mean, how easy was it on the fly to kind of adapt a different strategy to get this 37 in victory lane?
We just had to we just had to deal with everybody kind of racing hard around us. But I knew Vern was going to be tough to deal with because he was going to be aggressive, and TCB and Nanny were going to work really well on the bottom. But yeah, like I just first and foremost want to say sorry to Barb, but because both lanes weren't moving, and then I went to the bottom and they just checked up really hard on the bottom, and I just kind of got into them and turned them out on the outside wall, I guess. But yeah, definitely didn't want to do all that, but it didn't give me a 4X, so I didn't know that I was at fault until I looked back at it. But yeah, the deal with Sensi was we caught those guys at a really awkward spot, and I tried to go to the top to get around it, and then he wanted to follow me, and I moved high, and then he got run over from behind, and it was just, the trucks just have that crazy draft, and they pull really quickly, and then you don't know where to go with the run, and it happens a lot. So it is what it is, but that caution worked out for us, and it put us in the perfect spot to have a shot at it, and we definitely made the most of it.
So you're running down the front straightaway, you see the checkered flag in sight, and then you see this massive wreck behind you. You don't have any help anymore, but neither does TCB. Do you think TCB doors you? I mean, what was your plan here? Did you think, uh-oh, I've lost this, or?
I mean, I said at the beginning before the restart, I said, do what you're going to do. Just don't turn me or give me any incidents, because I was still at that 0x and I wanted those 3 bonus points for the points, because that's huge. So I knew he wasn't going to try anything crazy. He knows I'm going for a championship and he's not in the playoffs. So I was hoping he'd be respectful, and I've raced him a ton, and we've had a bunch of fun battles. So I didn't think anything like that was going to happen, but I knew he was going to side draft me really hard, and I knew there was a point where maybe I was going to get turned from it. But no, as soon as I saw that happen, he lost all of his momentum and I gained momentum. Somehow, I guess our trucks were just at the right area, and I was able to pull around him. But yeah, that was enough for me. And as soon as I saw that we were inching ahead of him, I knew it was all over and it was done. Prior to that, I thought for sure that Nanny was going to give him the push, and Vern switching lanes back and forth, I think, helped the bottom a lot more than it did us. And Zach was getting side drafted from the 3rd lane and everything. So if that didn't happen, and if Vern and Nanny and Zach didn't all come together, I don't think we would have had it. But honestly, I would have been content with second with us running 22nd with 4 to go. So that was a big flip for us. And, to get to victory lane is obviously just a little bit sweeter. But I was very content with just a top 5 at that point because usually I'm the one on the truck at the end of these.
Well, you bring it home with the victory. You're first on the season. You also take the points lead into Homestead in a couple of weeks' time. So, really good things happening here tonight for this 37 truck at Talladega. Congratulations. We'll let you get back to celebrating in a moment. But first, the floor is yours for Victory Lane. Thank you, sponsors, and shoutouts.
Yeah, first of all, thanks to everyone on E95. Madalinas didn't make the playoffs. Frustrating, but he'll be back next season, and we'll see how well he can do then. But he's been really stellar this season. Shout out to Austin Moore and Michael Sensi for always being here and showing up. 1, 2, 3 in points now after this whole flip. So, now we can go into these next 5, 6 races, whatever it is, and just kind of put our heads down and hopefully just take nice top 5 finishes and bring home this championship. I've never really liked the 3 races and switches and stuff like that. So I kind of like this 7 race kind of format. So excited to see how these all unfold. But yeah, thanks to the guys at E95, Michael Levine as well. Our alliance with Dark Horse and them helping us out when they can, pitting with us and stuff, and making sure that we have drafting partners. And then huge shout out to Vern for helping me get to the lead somehow, some way. And then for Zach for really pushing me at the end there and making sure that we kind of had a shot at it with the wreck happening behind us. And you guys broadcast, all the admin team and everybody else that makes this happen. Really glad the broadcasts are back, and we'll see how this playoff format unfolds at this point.
Well, a big win for Elliot Henderson. He takes the checkered flag here tonight in a photo finish at Talladega Superspeedway. Congratulations once again. Enjoy your Memorial Day weekend, and look forward to seeing you back at it in a couple weeks' time at Homestead, Miami.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
And that's going to bring our coverage here tonight for the Great Lake Truck Series presented by Patti Engineering to a close. We knew that this racetrack, we said it, very top of the program, a lot of points were going to be either gained or left on the table with the big field. We had 6 playoff drivers come into this race separated by 8 points. We've only got 3 drivers separated by 11 points right now. This Talladega race really split the playoff field up.
And the big thing is, some of those drivers, hey, they're kind of the dangerous type. Like, I don't know if I'd give Elliot Henderson a lead. I've seen what he can do with a little bit of a points lead, but same thing with other drivers. Maybe they weren't having that great of a time at Milwaukee, and then we went on the Dega, and this was the perfect bounce back for them. Same thing for Michael Sensi, Matthew Durr, kind of the same thing. This is great for them. They needed this boost, and now we can really go take the fight to them.
So we talked about the fact a couple of drivers here tonight not getting the performances they were looking for, took big hits in the point standings. Homestead Miami next on the schedule, a track that drivers would be looking at positively as an opportunity to gain those points back?
Realistically, yes. I view Homestead as really a driver favorite track because it's high banks. You can hold a lot of throttle through it. It's not really a super speedway of types, but it acts like it in some ways. I think I would be looking a lot more forward to Homestead Miami than I am North Wilkes.
And of course, we've got that coming up with North Wilkesboro. We've got Kansas, Michigan, and of course the season finale at Atlanta that these drivers will have to tackle in their quest to be the champion here in the 7th season of the Great Lake Truck Series. But we knew it was going to be a wild one and a thrilling one here at Talladega. It always is with super speedway racing. It came down to a photo finish here tonight. Elliot Henderson, playoff contender, picking up his first win on the season by 25 1/1000ths of a second. Matt, it's been a great one here tonight. I appreciate you joining me in the booth. Enjoy your Memorial Day weekend coming up this in a week's time.
Yeah, I'll try not to blow my hand off. It happens.
Yeah. Keep safe around them fireworks.
Yeah, it'd be like that New York Giants linebacker. I don't remember what his name was.
Well, I guess nobody remembers what his name is anymore.
He had the claw.
The Claw. Isn't that what the aliens on Toy Story? The
Yeah.
Claw. But
Yeah.
thanks to everybody that tuned into our coverage tonight. We hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, we're off next week for Memorial Day weekend, but we'll be back at it June 6th when these drivers will take to Homestead Miami Speedway in the continuation of the playoffs for the Great Lake Truck Series. For Matthew Rodriguez, I'm Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday night, folks. You've been watching another broadcast courtesy of FRN, the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.